that everybody has a way of putting their own strings on. I get all of that. I'm going to show you the way that I've showed the students and the way I do it. If you want to do it a different way, that's your thing. Okay. To this point, up to this point, we checked the neck for straightness before we started messing around. You dressed your frets, got the nut in the nut slot, attached the guitar neck to the guitar body. Now, there is an MLA that goes with this, and it is the intonation and setting up of the guitar. You could almost look at setting up and intonating as like one's a mechanical thing, the actual physically setting it up, strings off the first fret a certain distance, off the 18th or 20th fret a certain distance, physically set it up. Then we're going to intonate and tune this thing. So putting the strings on, I think it's a good idea to use a string winder, and I think it's a real good idea to get these pointing down the fretboard so they're all pointing straight. And I know you might be saying, that's not how I do it. Okay, you teach it to your students however you want to do it, you know. There's something I was going to tell you before I did that. What was that? Something about the nut. Oh, no, the bridge. This handout, this is what I gave my students when they went to set up and intonate. And I had one at each bench, like we're going to have with you guys. And it is a step-by-step outline. It gives you the overview: install the string nut, rough in the bridge saddles, install the strings, install the string trees, step by step. Install the nut, we talked about that. Sometimes you have to shim that, and we get this little shim styrene strips that we use if we have to shim it. Sometimes you have to lift it up, we hope not. Roughing the bridge in. This is what you're going to do before you put your strings on.
This will save you an hour.
Oh man, this was like,
Hour.
yeah, this when we started doing this, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, whenever it was. Like Tom said, it took about an hour off of the whole intonating process. The idea of intonating the guitar is physically, from the face of the nut to the contact point on the bridge, physically that's 25.5 inches. Physically, I should be able to hit that, and that should be half of 25.5 inches. And when I pluck that, if it's 82.4, it should be 164.8 when I pluck it, right? That's what these saddles are going to do for us. And so intonating is very iterative. So you're going to have to, you only do it once, but we actually change the length of the strings while we're intonating it. By roughing in the saddle, boy, this takes off a huge amount of time. So there's a little graphic here. And all we're having you do is rough in the saddle. The very first step is to measure 25.5 inches. That sounds right, right? Or 12 3/4. So here's the 12th fret. I'm going to burn an inch. So I should be at 13 3/4, right at that set screw of the high E.
In the middle of the screw.
Correct. Everybody with me on that? Mm-hmm. So I went from 12.5 from the 12th, or 12 3/4 from the 12th fret, or I could go 25.5. Same deal. So that is set. So I adjusted that. In order to get that adjusted, I come up behind the saddle with this little set screw here, and I move the saddle. So I've got that first one set to 25.5 inches. Now I'm going to eyeball the rest of them. Stagger the saddles about 1/32 of an inch is shown, and just rough them in. So I used this screwdriver and I roughed these in. The only one you measure is the first one. Now, if you didn't do this, and then you go to intonate, you're going to be doing an awful lot of back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, which is what you're supposed to do. We're just trying to save you a step. And oftentimes when you rough it in, out of 6 strings, you might nail 3 right on. So this is a really good step.
So show me again how these are all set.
Yeah. First thing you do,
I got the first
Yep.
the first one I got, and then
that's
what do
right.
you do
Now,
from there?
just eyeball it. And roughing it in truly is roughing it in. So when I looked at this, there's the first one. The next one's about a 32nd behind. That's what we're saying. So I just brought this,
Just a little
I
bit
just brought
back.
this screw back a little bit. I just brought this one. These are about even.
The next one's, I got it, the next one's about even with that
Yep,
one, the
yep.
next one's all the way
Hey.
with that one.
Roughing it in.
Can you-
Don't get stuck on this.
Mike, can you explain to me why they're not all just the straight same distance away?
Diameter of the string has a
Okay.
lot to do with that, you know.
String unit mass.
Yep.
So the first one's 25 and a half, but not necessarily the rest of them.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why is that one 25 and a half? Is because that is the thinnest steel string. So it has the least amount of mass. So it's gonna be the
Smallest
most
density.
accurate.
Yeah.
The other ones have more mass as you move along the bridge.
And we know E, B, G, D, A, E, right? Low E, high. Okay, so we've got this thing pretty well ready to put strings on. These, the strings, you'll hear people say, I play 10s, I play 12s. They're talking about the diameter of the smallest string. That's what they're saying. Well, I play 9s, I play 10s, I play 12s. You know, a 9 is thinner. Maybe you can shred and stretch, you know, bend your strings a little bit more. A heavier string you wouldn't. And then, of course, when you get up to your larger strings, another 46. So I'm going to start with the 10, and I'm going to bring them in and just get them running up in this direction. I put them all on first. I put all 6 of them on first, and then just leave them here, and then I do it. If you want to do one at a time, I think it's whatever your comfort level is. These things are. Have some extra ease. You know, just buy some bulks or something because your kid's gonna break them.
JustStrings.com.
You can get just these.
Just 60 cents.
Could've used that
60
a long
cents
time
an
in
E.
high school.
So there's the string ferrule, and there's a couple edges in here. It does that until it finally gets through. Yeah, I could pull that back. Let me pull that one back.
We can
Get
pull
back
the
if you
settle,
want.
yeah, we can pull this.
Let me pull this one back.
Actually, we'll pull the settle down manually.
Yeah.
We'll leave it where it is, you just kind of line it up.
One. So if you look on here, here's what we suggest. The unwound strings, 5 to 6 windings. The wound strings, 2 to 3. I'll take the low E first. I'm going to come straight up through here. Now on here it says, what did it say? Pull taut, then back up 2 posts. So I pull it tight, and here's 2 posts right here, right? Now I know from my experience that's a lot. So I'm going to come up a little bit shy. We go 2 posts up like this, and then you back the string down. Now you got enough to wind around the post. Right? So you line it up. I go up to that second post, and I know that gives me quite a bit.
And you got 2 posts with all the strings?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to back.
Consistency.
I'm just backing up a tiny bit because I know that's going to do that for me. And this has to wind this way, right? Can't wind the other way. So, excuse me for.
So it has to wind inside to outside.
Yep. And I hold it to get that kink in the string. And the coil builds from the bottom up. See that?
Mhm.
And it actually traps the string as it does that. And if sometimes the nut slides back and forth. So you definitely would wanna not have a slippery nut there, that's for sure. Okay, same thing here.
Use the fret nippers to cut the string.
Yeah, absolutely. We
Yeah.
use the fret nippers to cut the
It's a
strings,
perfect tool.
because they're steel strings.
Could somebody go put those away while we're thinking? Okay, so look, up to 2,
Mhm.
back it up. I turn it, I get the kink going,
Yeah.
and I pull it tight. You've gotta pull that tight, because that winding, it shouldn't have like loops and gaps and stuff. It should be a nice winding. Okay, see, there, I got 2 there, I've got 3 there, good deal.